It is night, and there is a letter in your hand. You do not know what it says. You are not permitted to know. The seal is unbroken wax, pressed with a ring you have never seen. The man who gave it to you did not tell you his name, and the man who will take it from you will not tell you his. The letter weighs less than a coin. It is the heaviest thing you have ever carried. Because you understand, walking this dark road between two watchfires, that the words inside it could end a career, or a rebellion, or a life. Perhaps yours. If you are stopped, you cannot explain it. If you lose it, you cannot replace it. If you open it, you can never close it again. The paper does not care. It sleeps in your coat like a small animal, warm from your body, patient. Tonight, we are going to follow that weight through 5 empires. Rome, which turned its grain clerks into the most hated men in the world. Byzantium, which guarded one secret so perfectly that it vanished from the earth. Persia, whose spies may never have existed at all, and were feared anyway. The Aztec world, whose merchants crossed enemy country wearing borrowed faces. And the Ottoman palace, which solved the problem of secrecy in the oldest and coldest way there is. 5 empires, rising and falling in different centuries, on different continents, speaking languages that never touched one another, and every one of them, independently in its own time, made the same discovery. That information is the most dangerous thing a person can carry, more dangerous than a sword, because a sword only threatens the man standing in front of it. You would not have survived this work. Almost no one did, not whole. But tonight, safely, slowly, you are going to live it. Settle in. Let your breathing grow long. The first empire is already waiting, in the smell of wheat dust and sealing wax, on a quiet hill in Rome. You are a soldier of Rome, in the 2nd century after Christ, and you have spent 11 years counting grain. Wheat, in the language of the army, is frumentum. The men who manage it are called frumentari, grain officers, and that is what you are. You know the weight of a full sack by the sound it makes landing on a cart bed. You know which river barges run light and which garrison clerks pad their numbers. It is dull work and honest, and it keeps the legions on the frontier fed through the winter. You are good at it. That, though you do not know it yet, is your mistake. Because a man who moves grain moves along every road in the empire. He enters every fort. He sits at every way station table, and drivers and quartermasters and board sentries talk to him, because he is no one, because he is only the grain man. He carries lists, then letters, then things that are not written down at all. And somewhere in Rome, in some room you will never see, someone understood a simple and terrible thing. The supply system of the empire was also its nervous system. Whoever held the grain routes held a web of eyes that was already built, already paid for, already everywhere. The summons comes without explanation. You are detached from your legion and sent to the capital, to a walled compound on the Calian hill called the Castra Peregrina, the camp of the strangers. Inside are men like you from every province, Britain, Syria, the Danube, each pulled out of his old unit, each answering now to a single senior centurion, who answers to the palace and to no one else. There is no eagle standard here. There are no triumphs, and there will be no statues. On the rolls, you are still a grain officer. Within a week, you understand that no one in this camp counts grain. You carry dispatches now, sealed letters moving between the emperor's household and the governors of distant provinces, along the fast roads, with fresh horses waiting at every stage. And you notice things, because noticing has quietly become your work. Which officer drinks with which senator's men? Which garrison cheers its commander a little too warmly? Which province grumbles when the tax wagons roll? You write none of this in the dispatches you carry. You write it in the reports you send back. And one night, at an inn on the road from the coast, A stranger pays for your wine and calls you by your name, and you realize that somewhere there is a man whose work is noticing you. No emperor loved this web more than Hadrian. The stories about him come from a late collection of imperial lives that historians handle with tongs, a gossipy book, fond of scandal, and it should be believed carefully. But the story it tells rings true to everything else we know. It says Hadrian used his grain officers to look into the private letters of his own friends. A senator's wife wrote to her husband, complaining that he was so wrapped up in his amusements he would not come home to her. When the man later asked the emperor for leave, Hadrian scolded him for it and quoted the complaint. The husband stood there, in front of the master of the world, doing the arithmetic you never want to do. If the emperor has read my wife's letters, what else has he read? And who carried them to him? You did. That is the work now, and the work grows darker with the century. When the persecutions come, it is men from your camp who are sent to find the Christians. The church historian Eusebius preserves what that hunt looked like from the other side. He tells of a believer named Dionysius in Egypt, whom the government wanted badly. A grain officer, a frumentarius, was sent to take him. The officer searched the roads. He searched the fields, the rivers, the houses of friends. For 4 days he searched everywhere a fleeing man might hide. And the one place he never thought to look was the man's own house, where Dionysius sat quietly the entire time, waiting until friends came in the dark and carried him away. You are the searcher in that story. You are thorough and feared and obeyed, and you walked past the plain wooden door 4 times because no hunted man could possibly be so calm. And the fear you cast has a cost, though it is not you who pays it first. In the villages of Asia Minor, farmers carve their misery into stone, petitions to the emperor that survive to this day, begging relief from the soldiers and agents who come off the imperial roads demanding food, lodging, money, whatever can be carried. Men against whom no villager dares complain to any nearer authority, because the men are the authority. You take because everyone in the camp takes. Who would you report yourself to? The complaints travel through your own hands. By the end of the 3rd century, the entire empire knows what you are. Old friends from your legion stop writing to you, and their silence is not carelessness. It is caution. A later Roman historian, Aurelius Victor, wrote down what the empire had come to call men like you. A plague. He said you seem to have been created for the ruin of ordinary people, prowling the provinces, inventing charges, feeding on fear. And when the emperor Diocletian took the throne and began rebuilding the whole machinery of the state, he weighed the hatred against the usefulness, and he did something almost no ruler ever does with a secret service. He dissolved it. The camps emptied. The title of grain officer went back to meaning grain. Across the provinces, people breathed. They should not have, because Diocletian had not ended the web. He had only found its flaw, which was that everyone had learned to see it. In its place rose a new service with a deliberately meaningless name, the Argentes in Rebus, those active in matters. Not soldiers now, but civilians of the court, answering to the palace. And where the old camp had held perhaps a few hundred men, the new service would swell to some 1,200, couriers and inspectors and watchers moving through every province of the late empire, so despised in their turn that one bitter contemporary called them wolves given the work of sheepdogs. Rome never did end its secret service. Rome only ever renamed it. And that is the first empire's discovery, the one the others will make again in their own tongues. The letter is never just a letter, and the man who carries it is never again just a man. Information, once you have touched it, marks you, the way smoke marks a cloak. Carry that thought gently, and walk east with me now, 3 centuries on, through the gates of a city built on the water, where an empire is learning not merely to gather secrets, but to keep them so well that one of them will slip out of human knowledge entirely. You are an official of Constantinople, 1,000 years after Rome's founding, and this morning you have been given a guest. He is an envoy from a northern people, tall, watchful, here to talk of trade and treaties. You belong to a department the palace calls the Bureau of Barbarians, and its stated work is hospitality. Foreign envoys must be housed, fed, escorted, honored. That is the surface. What historians believe the Bureau truly was, underneath the ceremony, is a filter. Every foreign visitor to the city passes through your hands, and while he studies the empire studies him. You will walk beside this man for weeks. You will note whom he asks about, which walls his eyes measure, how much he drinks, and what loosens when he does. Nothing about your kindness is false. Exactly. It is simply also an instrument. And the city itself has been arranged to lie to him. His route tomorrow will pass the full granaries, not the empty ones. He will see the fleet at anchor, groomed like a parade horse. He will stand in a hall where golden lions roar beside the throne and mechanical birds sing in jeweled trees. And the throne itself will rise toward the ceiling while he bows, so that when he straightens, the emperor is above him, robed in different silk, silent. None of this is vanity. It is policy. A Western bishop, sent here as an envoy in a later century, wrote home almost angrily about that rising throne and those singing bronze birds, unable to decide whether he had witnessed majesty or a conjuring trick, which means the room had done its work perfectly. And at night, while your envoy sleeps in the quarters chosen for him, you sit with a lamp and write him down. What he asked about the walls, what he asked about the army, which questions he did not ask, because a man's silences map his knowledge as surely as his questions map his ignorance. Your report joins the others in the palace archive, where the empire keeps its long memory of foreigners, so that when this man returns in 10 years or his son comes in 30, the file will already be waiting, patient as the paper in your coat on that Roman road. Hospitality here has a memory. This empire has outlived every neighbor that was stronger than it, and it has done so by treating truth the way other states treat gold, something to be minted, weighed, debased, and spent with intention. It spends in both directions. In the reign of Justinian, 4 centuries before your morning walk with the envoy, the empire's silk came along caravan roads controlled by Persia, every bolt of it taxed by the enemy. The historian Procopius records what the emperor did about it. Monks came to Justinian, men who had lived far in the east and knew the secret jealously kept there, that silk is spun by a worm, and the worm hatches from eggs a man can hide. The emperor commissioned them. They traveled back across Asia, and they returned carrying silkworm eggs concealed. The story says, inside hollowed canes, walking staffs that held an industry. From those smuggled eggs came imperial silk houses, and from the silk houses came centuries of wealth. It may be the most consequential act of industrial espionage in the ancient world, and it was ordered from the throne, openly recorded, a state stealing the future and writing it down. But gathering secrets is the lesser art. This empire's masterpiece is keeping one. In the year 672, or near it, a refugee reached the city. The chronicler Theophanes names him Kallinikos, an engineer from Heliopolis in Syria, fleeing the armies that were swallowing his homeland. He brought with him a recipe, a liquid fire that could be thrown from tubes mounted on the bows of ships, that clung to wood and flesh, and that burned, impossibly, on the surface of the sea. When the great Arab fleets came against Constantinople, confident, numberless, the defenders met them on the water with bronze siphons shaped like the mouths of beasts, and the sea itself caught fire around the enemy hulls. The sieges broke. The city lived. For centuries afterward, this weapon guards the empire like a household god. And so the formula becomes the most closely held secret in the medieval world. Foreign powers bribe, capture, and copy, and manage crude imitations, but never the true fire. And we possess an extraordinary document showing how deliberately the secret was tended. The Emperor Constantine VII, a scholar on the throne, wrote a private handbook of statecraft for his son Romanos, the heir. In it, the emperor teaches his child how to rule, which peoples to flatter, which to set against each other, and what to say when foreign kings ask for things they must never have. And on the fire, his instruction is absolute. Reveal the composition to no one. Say instead, he tells the boy, that the fire was revealed by an angel to the first Christian emperor, Constantine the Great himself, and that the angel bound him never to prepare it except for Christians, and only in the imperial city. A curse, a sanctity, a divine wall built around a chemical formula, a father in writing, handing his son a holy lie, because a lie with an angel in it cannot be argued with. It worked. Understand how completely it worked. Historians believe the knowledge was split into compartments, different hands holding different pieces, and the recipe passed from reign to reign along a chain of a chosen few. And when the empire finally fell, the chain simply ended. No enemy ever stole the true fire. No traitor ever sold it whole. It went down with the state that made it, and every attempt since, by chemists and historians sifting the accounts for naphtha and quicklime and resin, is guessing. We do not know how to make Greek fire. That is not a failure of the record. That is the record. That is what perfect secrecy looks like from the outside. 700 years of silence with a fire in the middle of it. Here, then, is the Second Empire's discovery, quieter and stranger than Rome's. A secret kept perfectly is a secret you are also keeping from your own future. Guard a thing well enough, and you do not own it anymore. It owns you, and when you die, it dies too, like a servant sealed into the tomb. Hold that in your mind, softly, and come further east still, and further back, onto the long royal roads of Persia, where we will meet the most frightening intelligence service of the ancient world, and try to answer a question historians still cannot settle: whether it existed at all. You are a Greek merchant on the royal road to Susa, 5 centuries before Christ, and you have been told all your life that the king has eyes everywhere. Your father told you. The traders at Sardis told you. Everyone who deals with the Persian Empire repeats it like weather. The great king sees. There is an official, they say, called the king's eye, and beneath him, or around him, or woven invisibly through every province, the king's ears, listeners on the roads, in the markets, at the way station tables, so that a careless word spoken against the throne in the morning is known in the palace before the season turns. And so you watch yourself. At every checkpoint where your papers are examined, at every station where the road officials feed you and log your passage, you speak of prices and of rain. The quiet man eating lentils across the fire may be a wool trader from Lydia. He may be something else. You cannot know. That is the point. You praise the king's roads loudly twice, and you sleep badly anyway. Now here is what makes this chapter different from every other chapter tonight. Everything you have just heard comes from the Greeks. Herodotus, writing his histories, mentions the king's eye as a real office at the Persian court. Xenophon, a soldier who marched through the empire's heart, later wrote that the king had many eyes and many ears, so that men everywhere feared to speak against him, as if the whole empire listened. The playwright Aeschylus put the king's eye on the Athenian stage as a character, within living memory of the Persian wars. And the comic poet Aristophanes mocked the figure before a laughing audience, an ambassador from Persia costumed, the joke suggests, as one enormous rolling eye. The Greeks, in other words, did not merely report the Persian surveillance state. They dreamed about it, staged it, laughed nervously at it. It lived in their heads. But the Greeks were the enemy, describing an empire mostly from outside, and Xenophon in particular was writing something closer to a philosophical romance than a history. So historians went looking for the eyes and the ears in Persia's own records. And Persia left records, tens of thousands of clay tablets from the archives at Persepolis, the daily paperwork of the empire, rations issued, travelers authorized, couriers dispatched down the fast roads with sealed documents and fresh horses. The tablets show a state magnificently equipped to move information, the finest postal roads of the age, the relay riders Herodotus himself praised, whom neither snow nor rain nor darkness stayed from their appointed rounds. What the tablets do not show anywhere so far is the institution itself. No corps of king's ears drawing wages. No roster of watchers. The machinery is documented. The spies are not. So we are left with two honest possibilities, and you may fall asleep weighing them. Perhaps the network was real and simply too secret for paperwork, which is what a very good secret service would arrange. Or perhaps the Greeks took a court title and a fast road system, and their own dread of the vast empire in the east, and built the rest themselves, in which case the king's finest intelligence work was accidental. Or was it a legend that policed his empire for him, cheaper than any payroll of informers? Because you, on the royal road tonight, guard your tongue either way. The watcher who may not exist watches you, exactly as well as the watcher who does. That is the third discovery, and it may be the deepest one in this whole long night. Surveillance believed is surveillance achieved. An empire does not need 1,000 listeners if it can plant one doubt. Rest with that a moment, and then come across the whole width of the world with me, across an ocean the Persians never dreamed of, to a city on a lake, where the spies carry their secrets hidden inside something no soldier ever thinks to search. Merchandise. You are a merchant of Tenochtitlan, and tonight, at the edge of the empire's protection, you are cutting your hair. You cut it in the fashion of the coastal people whose land you are about to enter, a people who are not friends of your city. You put away your cloak and tie on theirs. You have spent 2 years learning their tongue until your accent no longer catches, and tomorrow you will walk into their market towns as one of them, carrying obsidian knives and rabbit fur and needles to trade for jade, for shell, for feathers. You belong to the Pochteca, the guild of long-distance merchants, and within that guild to a smaller and quieter brotherhood, the Nawal Ostomeka, the disguised traders. The goods are real. The trading is real. It is also the cover, because while you haggle, you are counting. Warriors in the plaza, grain in the storehouses, the mood of the lords, the state of the roads, which towns resent their rulers and might welcome new ones. When you come home, all of it goes upward to the palace, to the ear of the Tilatohani, the speaker, the king. The merchants of your city are its eyes abroad, and everyone on both sides of the border quietly knows it. Which is why the border can kill you in both directions. If you are unmasked out there, a wrong vowel, a gesture from home made without thinking, you will not be ransomed. Merchants like you, when caught, were killed as the spies they were, and your death would not end anything. It would begin something, because the killing of the city's merchants was among the recognized grounds for war, and armies have marched over exactly that. You are walking into that market with your needles and your furs, both the spy and, if it goes wrong, the justification. And here is the strangest part of your life, the part worth carrying into sleep. Coming home is also done in disguise. The accounts tell us the great merchants returned to their own city by night, in plain worn cloaks, their canoes sliding in along the dark canals, their goods carried quietly into storehouses before dawn, wealth hidden not from bandits now, but from envy, from the warrior nobility, from the state you serve. Because a merchant who glittered too brightly drew dangerous attention, in a society where glory belonged to warriors. Abroad, you hide that you come from the empire. At home, you hide what you brought back for it. There is no border behind which you are simply, openly yourself. One honesty, before we leave you on the dark water. Almost everything we know of your life comes to us second-hand and late, written down after the Spanish conquest by friars, chief among them Sahagun and Doran, working from the memories of survivors, in the shadow of the empire that had just destroyed yours. The men who lived your life kept its secrets professionally, and then the world that held those secrets burned. So the record of the empire's spies is itself a survivor's whisper, filtered through the conqueror's pens, and historians read it the way you walked those foreign roads, carefully, alert for what is being traded and what is being hidden. Even your story reaches us wearing a disguise. The fourth discovery, then gentler and sadder than the others. The carrier of information is never fully safe on either side of any border, and neither, in the end, is the information itself. Everything depends on who survives to tell it. Now let the canals and the lake fade, and come with me one last time, east again, centuries on, through the gate of a palace above the meeting place of two seas. The final empire of the night did not train its keepers of secrets, or disguise them, or invent them. It found men whom secrets could not pass through at all. And it is the only chapter tonight where the safest thing you can do is exactly what you are doing now, staying silent, in the dark, listening. You are 14 years old, and you have just passed through the gate of Topkapi Palace in Constantinople, now the city of the Ottomans, and the first law of your new life has already been taught to you, before your name was even recorded. Here you do not speak. Not in the inner courts, not in the presence of the Sultan, and the Sultan's presence soaks through these courtyards like the smell of the sea. You learn to walk without letting your slippers strike the stone. You learn that the fountains in the audience chambers are not only ornament, that their constant falling water is a veil of sound, so that words spoken softly beside them die within arm's reach. Travelers from Europe who were admitted here wrote home in astonishment that the heart of the most powerful empire on earth was quiet as a sickroom. Thousands of servants, soldiers, pages, and over it all a hush that visitors found more frightening than any noise. Majesty in this palace sounds like nothing at all, and silence, you will come to understand, is not only majesty. It is architecture, a wall built out of the absence of words. Within that silence live the men you have been warned about in whispers, and the whispers you will find have them wrong. They are called the Dilsies, the tongueless, the mutes, deaf men, servants of the innermost palace, present at councils, standing at doors, attending the Sultan at his most private hours. Later storytellers in the West, imagining this palace from far away, would say their tongues had been cut out. One more atrocity for the collection they kept of Eastern cruelties. The record says otherwise, and the truth is colder and cleverer than the myth. Nothing was done to these men. They were sought out, deaf from birth or from childhood, precisely because of what they already could not do. A man who cannot hear cannot repeat what was said over his head. He cannot be bribed to disclose a conversation that never reached him, cannot be tortured into betraying a plan he never heard, cannot testify. The most secret business of the empire could be conducted in front of him, as if in front of a pillar, where Rome recruited watchers and Byzantium built walls of ceremony. This empire selected human beings the way a smith selects metal, for the property already in them. The Dilsies were not maimed into silence. They were silence hired. And then something happened that no one planned. The deaf men of the palace talked to each other, as deaf men will with their hands, and their language proved so useful in a palace where speech was disgrace that the hearing began to learn it. Pages learned it. Officers of the household learned it. Observers report that sultans themselves learned it. and that the Sultan Osman II, early in the 1600s, signed with his own hands and pushed his court to do the same, and that at the height of the custom, there may have been more than 100 deaf servants in the palace at once, with much of the hearing court fluent in their language. Emissaries describe grave men of state in a golden room conducting the business of an empire that stretched from Hungary to the Persian Gulf, entirely in gesture, in a language that left no sound to overhear and not one written word behind. The empire had discovered a channel of communication that could not be eavesdropped, centuries before anyone possessed a word for such a thing. We know all this because outsiders were occasionally allowed close enough to see it. A Venetian official named Ottaviano Bon, who observed the palace in the early 1600s, described the mutes among the Sultan's closest body servants, keepers of his privacy at the hours when no other attendant was suffered to remain. Others noted that the Dilsies carried confidential messages within the palace, trusted precisely because nothing could leak through them in transit, and that they attended the Sultan at his recreations, telling him stories in signs, making the most feared man in the world laugh in a room with no sound in it. Read those accounts slowly, and a strange tenderness surfaces through the dread. These men were not hidden away. They were near the center of everything, valued, sometimes loved, given rank and a place and a language the whole court bent to learn. The empire did not merely use their silence. It built a world where their silence was the highest form of speech. But you were not told the whole truth about the Dilsies, and the palace does not hurry to complete it. There are nights when they gather, several together, and move through the corridors with a purpose that empties every room they approach. And on those nights they carry, some accounts say, the silken cord, the bowstring, because this empire has written down what other empires only did. The law code attributed to the Sultan Mehmed II states plainly that whichever of his sons succeeds to the throne may lawfully put his brothers to death for the good order of the world, and royal blood by custom must not be spilled, so the instrument is the cord, and the hands on the cord at the most secret killings in the reports that reach the ambassadors are the hands of the mutes. In the year 1595, the Sultan Mehmed III came to the throne, and his 19 brothers, some of them small children, were strangled in the palace, and the city watched the 19 small coffins carried out next day, and inside the walls, no servant who attended that night could ever describe it, and this was not an oversight. The empire had found the final answer to the problem every empire of this long night has been trying to solve. How do you keep men from repeating what they have seen? You staff the room with men who cannot. There was only one flaw in the design, and it is recorded, and it is almost a mercy to reach it. Men who live by watching become the best watchers in the world. The scholar Cantemir, who lived years inside this court, tells of a night around 1691 when the enemies of the Grand Vizier gathered close to the Sultan to arrange the Vizier's fall. The man holding the curtain of the chamber door was a mute, Mehmet Aga, a Dilsies safe to plot in front of, as everyone knew. And from the doorway, from the shapes of their lips and the motion of their hands, he understood the whole affair and hurried through the corridors and laid the entire plot out in signs, exactly for the man it was meant to destroy. The Vizier lived. The perfect vault had one door, and it opened from the inside, because the empire had forgotten, as every empire in this story eventually forgot, that a secret is never carried by a system. It is carried by a person, and a person, however silent, is always quietly keeping an account. So the last discovery of the night belongs to the silent men of Topkapi, and it completes the circle we began on that dark road with a letter. In Rome, you carried the secret. In Byzantium, you guarded it. In Persia, you feared it, whether or not it was real. On the causeways of Tenochtitlan, you smuggled it, both ways, wearing two faces. And here, at the end, the empire made you the secret, built its security out of your body itself, and found that even then, the information found a way to move. It always finds a way to move. That is why it is the most dangerous thing a person can carry. It never stops trying to be delivered. Come back now, slowly, along the way we came. Leave the palace by the outer gate, past the fountains, still speaking their white noise to no one. Somewhere behind you, a man is saying something important with his hands, and you will never know what, and that is fine now. It was never yours to carry. Cross the water and the centuries. The lake city dissolves into mist, the night canoes sliding home with their hidden wealth. The royal road unrolls its way stations under the Persian stars, and the quiet man across the fire finishes his lentils and is, after all, only a wool trader. Probably. The sea lanes to Constantinople go dark and calm. No fire on the water tonight. The formula sleeping its long sleep in no one's keeping. And on the Calian hill, the camp of the strangers stands empty, its couriers dust, its files dust. The roads they rode still faintly there under the fields of Italy, going quietly nowhere. Every empire in this story is gone. The thing they discovered is not. It is in the room with you now, glowing softly on the device you are falling asleep to. In every message you have ever hesitated before sending. Every word you have weighed, because words once carried cannot be carried back. You know what they knew. You have always known it. Information is heavy. That is why it is such a relief, at the end of a long day, to set it down. So set it down. All of it. The unread messages, the unanswered questions, the things you noticed today, and the things you hope no one noticed. No one is listening now. Nothing needs to be reported. The watchfires are burning low on the road behind you, and the letter has been delivered, and you, at last, are no one again. Just a person in the dark, breathing. The night will keep your secrets. Sleep well.